Welcome, everybody, to Rico 12. I'm Justin B., your host, and a child of an all-powerful and perfectly loving God and a addict living in the miracle of recovery one day at a time. Rico 12 is an open to all addictions and afflictions organization dedicated to exploring the common threads of the differing manifestation of alcoholism, sharing tools, and offering hope from those walking a similar path. We gather from diverse backgrounds, faiths, and locations to learn and support one another. Our speakers come from various fellowships and experiences, demonstrating the universal principles of recovery. Rico 12 is not allied or affiliated with any specific 12-step fellowship. This is Rico 12 meeting 336. Thank you for joining us live or on the recording later. Today's speaker is Andy H., and he spoke previously on our Afro-Euro meeting with Karen, and today he's going to be discussing a topic that he calls a recovered life. A room without a roof. And I look forward to hearing his message shortly, but first, a few quick announcements. Rico 12 offers a variety of recovery resources, including podcasts and social media communities. To explore more, please visit us at rico12.com. That's RECO12.com. Or check out the chat and the show notes for links. I'll be posting things here in the chat here. Rico 12 is self-supporting, and your contributions help us continue this mission. Thank you to all our Spearhead donors, past and present. Your donations really make a difference, especially this week to Danae and Nika. We're grateful to have any donations that you may feel like your higher power is guiding you to give. If you'd like to contribute, please visit rico12.com/support or check the links that I'll be putting in the chat here or in the show notes of the podcast. Every bit of support, financial or through word of mouth, helps us share these messages of recovery. Each week, we receive light and inspiration from our speakers. Their experience brings hope, meaning, worth, and growth to us as listeners. Now, I'm going to welcome today's speaker, Andy H., and I'm going to read just a little bit about him to get him introduced. Andy's sobriety date is October 21st of 2005, and his home group is currently the same group that he joined when he first came in, the Morning After group of Westwood, New Jersey, now both on Zoom and in person. AA saved Andy's life. He says that he can never give back to AA what's been given to him, but he can try one day at a time. As a result of the 12 steps, being protected by a God, at home with self, and connected to a community, Andy has moved from a taker to a giver, from a greedy soul towards having a servant's heart. The journey has been generous. The job God has Andy doing is to engage another alcoholic in spiritual activity so he can live a useful life today. Take it away, Andy. The floor is yours.
Wow. Thank you, Justin. Hey, everybody. My name is Andy. I'm blessed to be an alcoholic, blessed to be in this gathering with everyone today. I want to thank Justin again and everything that gets done here at Rico 12. Business of saving lives, right? Awakening folks like me to bring us to where we're really supposed to end up being, and that's sober and helping somebody else. So it's truly by God's grace, by the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, the fellowship of the Spirit of the fellowship, by our 12 steps that change me, that change all of us. No steps, no program, by all of you, by my sponsors that have been patient and loving and kind, by the men and women that I've been blessed to sponsor over the years, which help me, which teach me, by my wife and 2 kids that have been with me right from the beginning, that I get to live a life well beyond anything that I ever could have imagined. It's really true for me that, as others have done, they've been asked to write when they first come in, come in off the street, come in however they do, to write down what they want out of this, right? I would have sold myself really, really short, without a doubt. As was said, my sobriety date's October 21st, 2005. That's when the power of God, which I've come to understand as love, separated me, removed me, divorced me from alcohol. It was like any other day. I'd gone from ice cold beer in summer camp back at age 15 to now 24/7 with alcohol and maybe some other substances. And suddenly I was separated. And I've come to understand, I didn't know it at the time, that was when the whisper of desperation grew to a scream. And it was over. I was done. Finally. Uh, so I come into you completely broken, lost, bleeding from the inside with no really, just with void, just emptiness. Even though if you saw me and from the outside, you'd say, well, he's doing pretty well. He's married, kids, cars in the driveway, still has a job. But the best way you could describe me was that I was like a swan, a swan glides through the air, looks real majestic, lands on a body of water, and the swan's paddling like hell. Um, I found out how I felt in here, put words around how I felt in here by what you've said to me. And I've come to understand in AA, plagiarism is wisdom, only stupidity is original. So if I sound like something that sounds familiar, that's a good deal. That really is. Um, yeah, there's a lot of analogies. I was like a mule in a Texas hailstorm, right? You can't run, you can't hide, and you can't make it stop. And that was me. And if I sound a little like I'm citing some music and literature, it's because I've been awakened. I was asleep for the longest time. I'm a big music guy, um, big movie guy, and I was so wasted for so long. And now I hear the sounds, the inspiration, the words, and the lyrics by so many folks over the years that have been speaking in spiritual ways. Um, yeah. The title in the of the talk here is "A Room Without a Roof," and that comes from a song by Pharrell Williams. Happy, my life is like a room without a roof. Um, but I'm reminded that my journey has been generous. I'm here for the full catastrophe, and along the way, um, I can speak to what Bruce Springsteen said some years back. I'm a sad man who's living in his own skin and can't stand the company. So, so the change for me, and we talk about it in our big book, to move from the third dimension into the fourth dimension. Um, that's the transition. And I know of no other way than to arrive there without the 12 steps. The formula for sobriety, the formula for God, and the formula for a sober life. Um, some people have said things like, the 12 steps are the instructions for the unfoldment of our souls. Others have been a little more crude and say AA without the 12 steps is like pouring maple syrup on a pile of crap and expecting it to taste like French toast. That was me in the beginning. See, I needed everything that was present here. I could not take any shortcuts. I could not, do a cafeteria menu of recovery. I did try that for a bit. We have a page in our big book that talks about it. It's on page 30. Some people call it step zero, where you go round and round and round thinking that you have more than two options. Still negotiating, still defending my right to drink. And I'm 6 months in and I'm getting worse, right? My outsides were getting even better, but my insides were getting worse, right? Because I have an alcoholic mind, a body that can't process alcohol and a mind that can't process reality. And I'm not drinking and getting worse. But thank God that that I fell from this crest into this abyss, the abyss of my own wretchedness in here, and finally saw that there was nothing I could do to keep myself sober, that the third dimension had failed me, that left me homeless, um, without any way to connect to people. Um, and it's real tough when you're in Alcoholics Anonymous, you're not drinking, and the steps haven't infiltrated your life. We talk about a loneliness that only few know, a jumping off place. The book talks about in page 152, the jumping off place that you can't live with alcohol and can't live without alcohol. But I experienced another jumping off place, and I'm not unique. And that was this period in step zero where, um, I couldn't live without AA and I couldn't live with AA for a period of time. And eventually I marinated in that. Um, you know, the walls of denial, delusion, and refusal were incinerated, and I saw I was one of you. And that first step experience, you know, the start of me being able to live life, not so much like a room without a roof just yet, but I was getting there. And the way I got there was because of the step zero experience on page 30. And eventually, when that wall broke down, I was able to identify. I was able to see that I'm a real alcoholic, which means when I take a drink, the drink takes me, the first part of powerlessness. And I'm not going to stop until I run out, pass out, or get locked up. The second part of powerlessness is my alcoholic mind, my mind that brings me back to a drink, no matter, what's in my way. I'm going there. It's been said that that session, that power, some talk about it as king alcohol, is greater than a mother's love for her children. I've seen that. I know from my experience, it was greater than my love for my kids and my wife at the time. I should mention that my wife and I are married 40 years. Today is her actual birthday. Go figure how God aligned everything, right? And there's time to do this and also go out to dinner later with the kids. Yeah, I didn't plan that. Maybe Justin planned it. I don't know. But I'm here today. But it was greater. That obsession, that driving force was greater than my love for my kids and my wife. Um, so if that's not enough, we've got another thing, another problem that can be solved by this program, right? It's the dash, the pause, right? That other side, which talks about unmanageability. We talk about it in the big book when it comes to restless, irritable, and discontented. I'm restless. I can't sit still. I'm irritable. I'm easily annoyed and I'm discontented. Wherever I am is not the place to be. Some of us call it the island of misfit toys. Mark Twain understood us. Um, he said the worst loneliness is not to be comfortable with yourself. And that was me for the longest time. And what does it turn out to be? Carl Jung told us, the great psychiatrist that understood us, understood that unmanageability, that it gets reflected on the outside, but it is about the insides, right? Carl Jung, in some incredible letters between him and Bill Wilson, right before Carl Jung died, spoke to this, in which he said that we have a low level thirst for wholeness or a union for God. Yeah. Carl Jung said we tried the lowest form of poison to reach the highest form of humanity. And isn't that true? Yeah. But then he gave us the answer in a Latin phrase, spiritus contra spiritum, that the spirit, God, is greater than the spirits of alcohol. And that's been my experience. So what happens in Alcoholics Anonymous has been said in other places. If you go after the king, you best not miss. And Alcoholics Anonymous does not miss with the 12 steps. It doesn't. So as the result of these steps, what happens is, on page 152 and 151 and 153 is so important. They talk about a lot of things. And at the bottom of page 152, we're given the you wills, 6 of them. You will make lifelong friends. You will be bound to them with new and wonderful ties. You will escape disaster together, and you will commence shoulder to shoulder your common journey. Then you would know what it means to give of yourself, that others may survive and rediscover life. You will learn the full meaning of love thy neighbor as thyself. I came to you as a taker. Buy me, bring me, give me, or I'd steal it. And I used any technique possible. Through multiple 4th and 5th steps, I found out that I used the toolkit of kindness to get what I wanted. I found out that, yes, I was a champion people pleaser. See, I thought I was pleasing you, but ultimately it was me pleasing myself, right? All this stuff that comes with an awakened spirit. That's all possible. And I do want to welcome anybody that's new or not so new or struggling, maybe having a tough time, maybe thinking you have nothing left. I can assure you that it was assured to me that everything you did brought you to where you are today, where you belong, home. And it's no coincidence today, the daily reflections, for May 2nd is an important page that speaks to any of us, no matter where we are in this journey, and says that our darkest past is the greatest asset that we have. With it, we can avert death, destruction, and misery, and countless others. That means that we got work to do, that God's not done with me or any of us to save us today. but like others, and for me, I needed to take my turn being desperate. Who'd have thought that part of getting to a place where life is like a room without a roof involves pain? I don't know about you, but I wanted to get away from all the pain I could muster, you know, whether it was emotional pain, whether it was a broken childhood. I didn't mention my mother was married 4 times. I used to say, my mother's married 4 times. She's still available. See me after the meeting, and there was some humor in that, but I don't see so much humor anymore. She passed a few years ago. It didn't matter that husband number two, my birth father, came back from World War II pretty broken. I didn't know it at the time. He left us when I was 9. So abandonment started. Now she went and husband number three and married a serial domestic violence perpetrator, that beat us, that terrorized us emotionally. Yeah. But I found out that's not why I'm an alcoholic. Those were circumstances, right? Those were circumstances that the best I can tell you is made me thirsty. So by the time I get to age 15, growing up in New York City, the drinking age was 18, oh boy. When I tasted it, I was electrified. I had the Bill Wilson experience. It brought me from the outside of the circle to the inside of the circle, and suddenly I'm able to talk to girls, talk to guys, and feel part of life at last, as Bill Wilson says. And what I found out is that there are a number of very important spiritual laws, and one of them is the depths of what alcohol gave me in the beginning was going to be the depths of what it took away in the end. You know, and for me, it was a 30-year run. Kind of like being kicked to death by a bunch of rabbits. In effect, because I'm a real alcoholic, I was committing suicide one drink at a time, and it took the longest time. Yeah. So what did alcohol give to me? It gave me an artificial way to a spiritual experience. And in the end, these 12 steps are a bona fide way to a spiritual awakening. Yes. So what does it mean to now be awake? It's a relative new experience. I mean, it's been since kind of 2005 in some ways, but God is, well, room without a roof, there's a lot there. So for a spiritual awakening, I find today that uh, there's there's I don't have anywhere to go. There's nothing to prove, and I don't need to win anymore. Um, I've lost interest in judging others, though that still happens. Um, I don't beat myself over the head with a bat. Someone said to me, "Get off the cross. We need the wood," which doesn't mean that um, the trio of self-examination, prayer, and meditation that you taught me is central. Um, you've taught me how to have self-awareness today. Life with a room without a roof is also finally learning that honesty can actually be part of my life, at the center of my life. I had an occasional funny relationship with the truth for so long. I was a professional liar, um, and I looked at that as an asset, as a skill in order to survive. And now I find it, well, someone once said that, if you tell the truth, you don't need to remember anything. That's a new experience. But I've seen today that, as how it works gets typically read. I am not constitutionally capable of being honest. I am constitutionally capable of being honest. That's been one of the ultimate gifts. Because in the end, Alcoholics Anonymous taught me to feel my own heart, and which means that pain, well, God expresses him or herself in pain, and God doesn't waste pain. Um, so I want to talk about a couple of things, that illustrate, what it's like to have a room without a roof as a life today in the fourth dimension, right? Um, right. in the fourth dimension, which means that the statement that my sponsor Jerry said to me years ago was this, that um, his job was to help me meet the conditions to enter the world of the spirit. And when I enter the world of the spirit, God can heal this broken world through me. Yeah. And God meets me always in my surrender, though the trip does have desperation. Who talks about desperation as a gift other than in here? You say that on the outside, people look at you and say you're out of your mind. But through that desperation, we take turns being desperate because we pull each other through, right? By doing things like this. Um, Through that desperation, ultimately, there isn't just relief and release, there's peace and awakening. Um, so I'm blessed to tell you that not long ago, a little over a year ago, my our daughter Lauren got married, and she got married in upstate New York at this beautiful wedding venue. And our biggest concern was what was the weather going to be. The weather was spectacular. You know, it's as if the best weather God dialed up for us, right? And they are a great couple. I'm blessed to tell you that our daughter Lauren is um, 16 weeks along, um, pregnant with a girl, um, and things have moved along rather quickly. So at this wedding venue, I was given the opportunity to be to be part of this kind of I guess custom. It's not always true everywhere, where um, the father of the bride gets to see the dress, uh, or my daughter, dressed before everybody else does. And Lauren was situated um, facing me, but I was first facing the lake near there. And the deal is that Lauren's going to tap me on the shoulder and ask me to, to turn around. And what seemed like, an hour was really just a few minutes. And suddenly, she taps me on the shoulder. I turn around and we both are hysterically crying. We are, I mean, snot nose crying. Tissues weren't enough there, Um, and that was a moment. And there were more moments. Later on, at the reception, I was asked to say a few words. And I said something like this, that love is patient, love is kind, love rejoices in the truth. It always protects, always hopes, and always perseveres. Lauren and Nick are a couple for the ages who met during the pandemic, fell in love, and they decided to share their lives together. Forever singing, Then I Look at You, and the world is all right by me. Just one look at you, and I know it's going to be a lovely day. That's Bill Withers. Um, so the room without a roof goes like this. Apparently, a sober heart can handle both sorrow and overwhelming joy together and get through these moments and be present in these moments, and not drink. Uh, you know, it's been said that there's no greater pain than a moment of joy in a sea of sadness. And I'm here to tell you that I'm not unique. I've watched other people go through this, but suddenly, not just me, but my family is right in the middle of all this, because around the time Lauren got married, um, or well, not just my best friend, but a lot of people would say the same thing. My sister-in-law Barbara passed away after a valiant battle with cancer. Barbara's the kind of person you may have in your families where, you know, whatever situation you would say in your mind, oh, what would Barbara do in this situation? You'd seek her out for advice. It could be about anything. She cared so much about everybody and what they were doing. Probably the most selfless person I've ever met. Um, so she passes away around the same time, and how's that going to go? Not only me, but how are others going to handle it? And you showed me how to be present, not just for myself, but for others as well. Um, so I also got to say some words concerning Barbara. And I said things like this. The wind in Barbara's life is now the wind in our life. The wind is simply crossed over. And because of Barbara's continued love and guidance today, we get to live the dash. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. That's a poem by Linda Ellis, The Dash. And what Linda Ellis is talking about is the dash on a tombstone between the day we're born and the day we pass over. You all taught me how to live my dash after a lot of years of trying to live it on my own, being in the wilderness, living life like an ingrown hair. Um, you know, truly, um, truly just lost despite outside appearances. And now I can tell you that there's no other person I'd rather be than me. There's no other group of people I'd rather be than with you all. And there's no other moment that I'd rather be in this moment. Um, Alcoholics Anonymous is a good deal, the best deal. And I wouldn't have changed one thing to get to this moment. Um, the age of miracles is upon us. Our own recovery proves that. We are all miracles. So don't leave until a miracle happens, and don't leave when the miracle happens. And I'm going to end with this. The Wizard of Oz have to speak so much to what we do here and the spiritual life. And my favorite scene is at the end when Dorothy, with Toto the dog, is standing there with Glenda, the Good Witch of the East. And Glenda looks at Dorothy and she says, "What have you learned?" And Dorothy says, "There's no place like home. And you've always had the power. You just needed to click your heels." So this great power, this power of God that's within all of us gets expressed from you to me, but it's always been deep within me, is the essential power. If nothing else, in order to survive, I need a power greater than myself, God, between me and the thought of the first drink, so I can live in a recovered state, not cured, but in a recovered state. And you've shown me how to do that. And for that, you know, I can never give back to A what's been given to me, but I can certainly try one day at a time. So thank you, Justin, for having me. Love you all and appreciate hearing back from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andy. I loved your share. Very uplifting, and I love the energy. You know, a mellow, calm, but assuring energy. Thank you for taking your time today to do that on your wife's birthday, and with so many things happening in your life. Happy birthday to your wife. I hope you have an amazing time with her later today. Before we let you go to that, though, we do have some questions. I've got a couple that have come in from the live audience, and a reminder to our live audience: if you have a question for Andy, please post it in the chat of the meeting. If you'd like to remain anonymous, either write anonymous, please, or direct message it to me. If you direct message it to me, I'll just assume that means you want to remain anonymous and not have your first name read. All right. So before I get into any of the questions from our live audience, though, Andy, one of the things you said, and I've got a question about this: a room without a roof involves pain. And then you talked a little bit about one of the husbands of your mom who was very abusive. Now, how do you get to the point of recognizing the past, owning the past, but not blaming it for your alcoholism, for whatever is going on wrong in your life?
Thanks, Justin. The realization that's come slowly for me over time has been that it's not about them. Um, Whatever was done to me can now be looked at whatever was done for me. Um, and that's evolved over time. I wouldn't be saying this, maybe 7, 8 years ago, but I see it today because while there is no excuse for what was done, um, I do recognize him and others in which there's been harm done as sick people. Um, I won't say that they did the best they could with everything they had. Definitively, I believe today that perhaps they did the best they could with what they had within them. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. And that's allowed me to just let go of it, or ask God to take it, because I'm not in the business now of squandering anymore the hours, the moments that I have. Um, and I wouldn't say that this was just done with 12 steps and you folks at Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't need, it might be called outside help, but I don't believe it's outside help, because it's to help us inside. So through therapy and psychiatric help, that's all come together with the core of the bedrock of my recovery, and that's been within AA and the 12 steps. So that combination has allowed me to see it differently. Um, yeah, if that helps.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. And as you were sharing that, we had an anonymous question come in based on the topic of pain. And this person says, how do you know what pain is as a result of being in disease thinking or behavior versus from higher power, from God? How do you differentiate the source of that pain, I guess? Got questions about addiction, recovery, or just life in general? Let's noodle it out together. Grab your big book, a pen, a highlighter, and a notepad, and join Nikki M. and me, Justin B., on Rico 12 Noodle It Out with Nikki M. Each episode, we take real-life questions, ours, yours, and those from the recovery community, and dig deep into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous to find real, practical solutions. So, if you're ready to do the work and apply the solution, tune in to Noodle It Out with Nikki M, streaming now on your favorite podcast platform.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't necessarily distinguish it. I generally just think that when I get nudged, when warning signs come up, it's time for me to immediately look to see where I am in my relationship with God. Um, I believe God's the most important relationship I have today, and things like, where am I when it comes to spending time with God? And I use some helpful things that have been taught to me, and one of them is, if I spend as much time with God as I spent with my kids, would my kids feel loved? Because ultimately it's a deficiency. And what happens is, and we have another great barometer that helps to clarify things on page 52, the bedevilments, which at first I thought was just going to describe my internal spiritual malady, the long form, having trouble in personal relationships, full of fear, etc. But it's a great way to see the level of my agnosticism, on a day-to-day basis. Because if I'm feeling any of those things, because ultimately all the different symptoms break down to most likely self-centered fear on something. And then I realized that, wait a minute, there's something just not right. And my expectations are that that's just going to be the way life is the rest of the, till the end, whatever the end may be. The idea of feeling completely at one at every moment, is, well, I think it's, at least for me, it's unrealistic. So I'm going to have those moments in between, but the warning signs come up quick and I don't ignore them at all. I immediately, speak to my sponsor, speak to other alcoholics, go into the silence, because I know that something's up. So vigilance. It's really about vigilance.
Yeah, I love that. And, it reminds me of the comment in step 11 from page 87. As we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful, when we feel that disconnection from power that we have guiding with us. And then going back to step 10, we're watching for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, fear. And when these crop up, we ask God at once to do that. What does that process look like to you, practically speaking, as you go through your day? How do you recognize those moments when there's a disturbance in the force?
Yep. Yeah. So, beautifully just led us to the 10th step, which for me is a moving meditation throughout the day. It's a way to deactivate the buttons that I think people are pushing, you know. And the beauty of it is it is a there's mechanics to it, you know. I mean, the key words you mentioned, such as watch. What am I watching for? I'm watching for my character defects to emerge, right? Whether it be selfishness, self-centeredness, inconsideration, all of that we've identified. I ask, which is always a prayer, I ask God to remove them at once. Um, I discuss, if I can, I discuss with another alcoholic. So watch, ask, discuss. Sometimes I'll have just, in front of me the word watch, in my car in the windshield or, just sitting here at a desk. Watch, keep watching. The best is then I get to turn, right? I get to make a left or a right to turn my thoughts to helping somebody else. Um, so watch, ask, discuss, turn, and then there's another word, vision, which is carrying the vision of God's will into my life. What would He have me do? Um, Not perfect at it. It's kind of for me like doing a physical workout, right? Sometimes you get into the gym and you're loving it and you're on fire, and other times you can barely get in there and get through the doorstep, But I find that the more I do it, um, I'm in a better position. And in the end, the 10th step is really about the, well, it's the way to work step 6 and 7. How much am I abandoning myself to God? How many things in my realm are so objectionable that I need God to remove them? So it's a constant, I think, strengthening of that relationship. And I don't know, I kind of laugh a lot too, because it's like, oh, okay, yeah, it's back again. I'm scared of this, or I'm annoyed at this person. Okay, um, you've taught me to be able to just laugh at it, to watch the thinker, as some people talk about. Yeah,
Yeah, thank you, Andy. I'm going to move to another anonymous question from our live audience, and I posted it in the chat, so maybe you can read along with me as I read this to get a better
sure.
grasp of what's being asked here. This person says, you mentioned a mind that can't process reality. Can you talk about your experience with personal relationships and learning to trust others? My mind finds it difficult to process and discern the reality of who I can trust and who not to trust. For example, people at work or other places.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, there was a time in my life where if you had something I wanted, no matter what your, I don't know, morals were, um, I would consider you like a buddy and a friend. I would essentially, give my consent very easily to you knowing about what I'm thinking, what my life is about. Um, and I get that today because when I was such a person who didn't believe that honesty was a virtue, um, I contributed to just being uh, somebody that didn't look at didn't look at all below the surface of what people were saying or doing. And now, in order to be in a place of trust, um, I have to feel that there's honesty between us. Without honesty, in fact, if people are dishonest with me, I can't have them in my life today. That's a complete reversal, from where I was for so long. So if I can establish that um, slowly that someone is being, truthful to me and I'm being truthful to them, then trust can come. But it takes some demonstration. I mean, just the relationship progression that goes on with God, which for me was willingness, belief, faith, trust, and reliance, that can be applied to some degree. Not all, but a little bit. Some of those principles can be applied, whether it's you're talking about work relationships or family relationships. Um, so, you use the word discern. Yeah, discern, decide. It's not for everybody, right? I mean, not everybody is going to have that. You're not going to have that relationship with everybody. And my expectations now are now limited to just a few. Yeah.
Hey, Spearheads. If you're looking to dive deeper into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous with people who live the solution, then you won't want to miss Rico 12 Big Book Roundtable. Join David G., Nikki M., and me, the moderator Justin B., three recovered addicts from multiple fellowships, as we break down the big book line by line. In each 30-minute episode, we share our experience, strength, and hope in a real, raw, and practical roundtable discussion. So, if you are ready to learn and apply what you learn, tune in to Rico 12 Big Book Roundtable on your favorite podcast platform. You know, what you shared there reminded me of something that one of my recovery mentors said to me, I don't know, probably close to 10 years ago. I asked a similar question, something about trusting somebody, and he shared a story about a person he used to work with, but he had never really interacted with this person. But other people around him said, hey, whatever you do, don't loan that guy money. Don't give that guy money. You'll never see it again. And the guy eventually came up to him and said, hey, can I borrow $5? And he loaned him. He said, yeah, here's $5. And everybody came back to him and said, why'd you do that? You'll never see that again. He goes, you know what? It's worth $5 to find out if I can trust this person or not. You know, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, just putting a test out there, kind of like, when you're trying to transfer money between banks, they do these little deposits, right? Like $1, and then, to see if the accounts match. Yeah, I think I just remember the Cyndi Lauper song, Money Changes Everything. So I would say that that's a good thing, but I just wonder, again, how broadly to use it, because eventually, money does. I'm not the only one that's seen, even within families, my family, very strong relationships suddenly unravel because of a little money in there. So I wonder about that sometimes as to being it, but I think it has its place.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good. Good stuff. All right. I want to go back to something you said during your share that really piqued my interest when you said it. You said, you know what? I don't need to win all the time anymore. Do you mind diving deeper a little bit further into that? Right now, where I'm at in my own life, and actually it's while observing someone else in my life, how do you get to that point where I don't have to win versus I'm going to be a doormat for the rest of my life and let everybody else walk all over me?
Yeah. Yeah. So the recovered life for me means something like I have nothing to win, nothing to prove, and I'm not going anywhere. Um, it is. I mean, the winning came, for me in a way where in the third dimension, it's just about me being right, about getting over on people, making the most, of the situation with somebody, um, dividing people into, winners or losers, that kind of thing. And that drive, that drive doesn't exist anymore for me. It's as if, I've spent enough time trying to do that. And it just seems futile now in whatever days I have remaining. Um, so the drive in my life, progression in sobriety is to grow spiritually, which means growing in my relationship, you know, with God. I mean, it's been replaced. Um, it's been replaced. So, that's why, when we talk about sometimes in the rooms, you'll hear stick with the winners, and I get a little bristled at that because I think if you came through, the hardest step is the doorstep. You've already won. You've already been, you're here. Now, it doesn't mean you're not going to, it doesn't mean you're going to stay. You may come back, you may get lost, whatever, but you've already won, because this is all about, as I said about the steps, protected by God, at home and self, and connected to a community. So, you're one now. You're right where you need to be. So I try to apply that. Yeah, I do like my sports teams winning, but I don't get crazy. If you saw me when my teams, without saying, are perennial losers, but once in a while they'll win. I'm much more settled with that today. Um, so
No, that's really powerful. And this next question I have for you may not have an answer. I don't know. But Andy, do you recall like the hinge pin moment where your mindset went from I have to manipulate things to win to, you know what, I'm going to let things happen and follow and trust that higher power has my best interests in mind, no matter what that looks like.
I think, brings me to the first fourth step I did and the fifth step with my sponsor and asking God to join, and I received the fifth step promises. Um, that was the moment when, first of all, it was the most honest and closest moment I ever had with a human being, and that was truth at that time. And I received those promises that my fears would fall from me, that I could look the world in the eye. Because see, I came to you not as a hot mess. I came to you as an icicle when I walked in this summer into the fall of 2005. Um, you know, I couldn't talk, couldn't pick my head up. Um, I got thrown out of rehab pretty much because I couldn't give a clean urine. Um, and yeah, and that's where, when I came into my home group, it took time to warm up, to thaw out. But then once the fifth step was first done, I knew I was going to be okay. I'd call that the hinge, for me, the first fifth step. Um, because, there's that old short story by Oscar Wilde that was written a long time ago, called The Picture of Dorian Gray. And Dorian Gray is this beautiful, well, he's this handsome guy, everybody's idol. He's, you know, walking around London or wherever in the 1800s, and um, everybody wants to be with him. And he has this portrait made at the time. The portrait gets put in a closet, and he gets older. Everybody does, but he doesn't age. Everybody else around him ages, and people are starting to look at him like, "What's going on here?" One day he opens the closet and he sees that this portrait is hideous. It's disgusting. It's vile, and that's what he feels like on the inside, right? Um, so the fourth step and the fifth step for me was my Dorian Gray, was my just dumping of what the ego had driven me through this disease to do and feel, and it was gone. Um, Oscar Wilde also said something like, to love oneself is the beginning of a lifelong romance. And that's about what we do in here, right? Is learning to love ourselves. Um, you first loved me before I could love myself. Uh, so
Yeah. So was that about the same time when you mentioned, there's no other person in the world that I'd rather be than me? Is that about when that shift also happened?
it started. I mean, it wasn't an awareness right away. As time went on, and going through the amends process the first time, um, you know, healing the harms that I've put out there, uh, as instructed by the book, my sponsor, and God, that started to bring me even further along, right? Because um, the steps are really about moving from resentment to forgiveness, right? And and the heart moved from being a cold heart to warming up a bit. There's still more to go, you know. There's still more to go, and I've come to know today that I love you all. I mean, we've just met, but we know each other. And the way I'd call love is today is that I sense myself in you, and you sense yourself in me. So we're connected. It's a recognition of oneness. And that's what's happening here. Um, yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Andy. All right. So, one more thing before we start wrapping up here. I love how you brought in the you wills from pages 152, 153 of the
Yeah.
big book. Um, and you also said, don't leave before the miracle happens. And then you added a don't leave when the miracle happens. Stick around. Talk to us a little bit about the you wills and how you have experienced those in your life and in your recovery. Hey, Rico 12 Spearheads. If our recovery resources have helped you, please consider a donation. Your financial support, as well as your word of mouth support, keeps Rico 12 running and reaching the man who is still sick. Donate today at rico12.com/support or check the show notes for PayPal and Venmo links. Every contribution helps carry the message. Thanks for being a Rico 12 Spearhead.
Yeah. So for me, noticing the you wills, it's truly as if it was just put in like, recently. And yes, I'm always astounded, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that suddenly you know, certain things light up that you never saw before. And in this case, there's six of them, right? Um, Making lifelong friends, shoulder to shoulder in a common journey. Um, the thing that comes up right now is something that's very timely because next week I'm blessed to be going to London and to Bournemouth to meet folks, including my sponsor, that we know 5 years since the beginning of the Zoom era, say in March of 2020. So I'll be sitting with these folks that I know are lifelong friends, and we're going to be crying our eyes out. We're going to be hugging each other. We're going to be breaking bread together, all trudging together. Um, and as part of that trip, there's a conference in a beautiful shore town in Bournemouth. And then what do I get to do? I get to then meet Susan in Italy after that. Um, I mean, we escaped disaster together. And now we're on a common journey because we're in not just the spirit of the fellowship, but the fellowship of the spirit, right? We understand the problem, we understand the solution, so we're bound together. Um, and then at the end, love thy neighbor as thyself. I mean, wow, imagine that, right? When you're a taker, when you're a user. Um, Today, when my 11th step practice begins just as my eyes are opening. And if my first thought is of you and not me, when the eyes open kind of, and I'm starting to have a conscious moment, then I'm going to have a good day. And then above it, it talks about give of yourself that others may survive and rediscover life. Um, right? To be a soldier of Alcoholics Anonymous, to help create more sponsors. I mean, we're really in the sponsor creation program, right? Ultimately, right? We didn't just get sober to help, to be okay with ourselves, but we're here to help others. Thomas Merton talks about it, not in the prayer, but he says something like, we care for ourselves in the service of others. I had none of that. None of that. That's part of awakening today. Yeah. So it's all in the you wills, right there, 152 and 153.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, thank you for that. Just this last weekend, I had the opportunity to do somewhat what you did. I didn't get to go to London, but I went to a conference and met a whole lot of people that I've only seen in little squares on the screen.
yeah.
And it was so amazing to be able to just sit down, hug, and talk and connect in ways. To any of you out there who are uh, pandemic era recovery attendees, I highly recommend, yes, continue doing these Zoom meetings, but get out there and get to conferences, get to in person meetings, and get to see people that maybe you've just seen on a screen. And man, that connection is so amazing. I think I don't know what else to say about that. It's just a powerful connection. Any other thoughts on that before we start wrapping up, Andy?
Yeah, no, I would say, make avail yourselves of everything. Whatever mix takes you to new heights in connectivity, which is all possible. I mean, Zoom is part of the fabric of Alcoholics Anonymous and all the 12-step fellowships right now. Uh, Going in person, though, well, that's also something that is an experience not to be missed as well, no matter where you are in your journey. So, yeah, absolutely.
It is an experience not to be missed. I love that. Thanks for
Yeah.
bringing that in there. All right. Any final words of wisdom before we wrap up, Andy?
Other than just, I'm really grateful, to be here and have the moment to share in this space, and appreciate you, Justin, and all that you do. That's it.
Thank you so much, Andy. And I appreciate you and your time and willingness to do this. Congratulations to your daughter. If you come, is this your
Yeah.
first grandchild that's coming along?
It's actually going to be our second. Our son
Awesome.
had a baby almost 2 years ago. Her name is Camilla, and she's doing great. So this is yeah, number two.
It's a
Yeah,
beautiful life.
yeah.
It is a
Thanks.
beautiful life. And
Yeah.
also, happy birthday to your wife. So, everybody, thank you for being here to this for this amazing Rico 12 speaker meeting. If we missed your question, if you have any other things that you'd like to ask, if you'd like to connect with Andy, please reach out to me at rico12pod@gmail.com. I can get you connected through that way. And also join our WhatsApp community if you'd like to ask questions, get in the conversation about this or any other top recovery related topic. And if you haven't done so yet, please consider rating and reviewing the podcast on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. It is a powerful way to help to work your step 12 and share recovery with others. Next Friday, we will be hearing from our first time Rico 12 speaker, Greg T., and I'm excited to hear from him. I look forward to hearing that share. So stay updated via WhatsApp or our email list, and reach out to me at rico12pod@gmail.com if you have questions or want to join those lists. Now, let's wrap up this meeting with the Thomas Merton prayer that Andy's going to say for us.
Thank you, Justin. Uh, Thomas Merton, who gave us this prayer, said that God's first language is silence. And he gave us this prayer of unknowing as well. God, I have no idea where I'm going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end, nor do I really know myself. And the fact that I think I am following your will does not mean I'm actually doing so. But I believe that the desire to please you does in fact please you. And I hope I have that desire in all that I'm doing. I hope I will never do anything apart from that desire. And I know if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may know nothing about it. Therefore, I will trust you always, though I may seem to be lost in the shadow of death. I will not fear, for you're ever with me, and you will never leave me to face my perils alone. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Andy. Everybody, remember there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find God now. Keep coming back, and when you do, come all the way in, sit all the way down. Let's trudge this road of happy destiny together. Work it. You are worth it.
I've seen stars fall from above. I've fallen in and out of love. I've been high and I've been low. Now I know I just can't do this on my own. I've seen a boy become a man. He got lost without a plan. He's so far away from home. Now I know I just can't do this on my own. Your arms surrounding me. Your touch is grounding me. No longer searching for purpose all alone. 'Cause now I know that I just can't do this on my own. I'm looking for the words to say. You make the world a better place, and I can call that place my home. 'Cause now I know that I just can't do this on my own. Your arms surrounding me, your touch is grounding me. No longer searching for purpose all alone. 'Cause now I know that I just can't do this on my own. So let me see just what you need to set you free, so we can be. I saw stars fall from above. I fell in and out of love. I got high and I fell low, but now I know that I just can't do this on my own. No, I just can't do this on my own. I just can't do this on my own.